The black velvet mask covered half of his face, but his green eyes captivated me instantly through it. That night at Velvet Mask changed my life forever, and not in the way I expected. My name is Derek Collins. I'm 38 years old, and 6 months ago I moved to Portland after a promotion at the logistics company where I work. Seattle was left behind, along with a failed relationship that made me throw myself headfirst into work. My life in Portland was reduced to spreadsheets, meetings, and the gym. Nothing too exciting for a single logistics manager, until that fateful night when Ryan, my co-worker, insisted that we check out the city's most exclusive bar. I had no idea that this mysterious place, where everyone wears masks, would be the perfect setting for the start of a secret that would consume me from the inside. If you've ever kept a secret that could destroy your family, this story will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Portland has its own charm in the fall. From the windows of my apartment on the 15th floor, I gaze at the golden trees of Washington Park and the Willamette River winding through the city. My routine is meticulously planned. 6 a.m. gym, 8 a.m. office, lunch at my desk while I answer emails. At night, I'm almost always alone, except for some Wednesdays when I give in to Ryan's invitations for happy hours with the team. He insists that I need to live a little, but I feel comfortable as I am. Or so I thought, until that specific Wednesday when he mentioned Velvet Mask. "You have to check out this place," Ryan insisted, showing me an elegant black card with golden letters. "It's different from anything you've seen. Everybody wears masks. No one knows who's who. It's like living a fantasy for one night." I rolled my eyes, but something about that idea intrigued me. Maybe it was the boredom of the past few weeks, or just the curiosity for such an unusual concept. In the end, I agreed. Velvet Mask was hidden in a historic building in the Pearl District. The place exuded mystery from the entrance, with its low lighting and soft music. An employee handed us black velvet masks, explaining the rules. We were forbidden from using our real names, as well as revealing specific details of our real lives. That's when I saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an impeccable suit, and a mask that accentuated his hypnotic green eyes. He was at the bar, alone, idly twirling a glass of whiskey. Our glances met, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Ryan had already disappeared into the crowd when he approached. "First time here?" he asked in a deep voice that made my stomach lurch. I nodded, trying to maintain my composure. "You can call me M," he said, ordering another drink. We talked about music, art, travel, all superficial, following the rules of the place. But there was something different about him. Perhaps it was the mystery, or maybe the way his eyes smiled behind the mask while I spoke. The night progressed, and the chemistry between us became increasingly evident. We discovered similar tastes in photography and gastronomy. He had a unique way of talking about business that fascinated me, even without delving into specifics. "You're different," he commented, moving a bit closer. The subtle scent of his cologne mixed with whiskey left me dazed. Or maybe it was the wine I was drinking. "There's something about you that intrigues me." At that moment, I thanked the mask for hiding my blush. Years of self-control and focus on work seemed to melt away under his intense gaze. I should have realized at that moment that I was stepping into dangerous territory. But sometimes, the biggest mistakes start with the most tempting decisions. The hours passed like minutes at Velvet Mask. M led me to a more secluded sofa, where our conversation continued. Every word we shared revealed more facets of his fascinating personality, even while keeping to the mystery demanded by the place. "Have you ever been to Japan?" he asked as he leaned toward me. We shared travel anecdotes, discovering that we were both impacted by Japanese culture. I was surprised by his passion for analog photography. It was rare to find someone who still valued it. "Digital photos are practical," he explained, gesturing elegantly, "but they lack soul. In analog, every click has to be thought out, felt, like those moments in life that we can't afford to waste." The bar started playing soft jazz. M ordered another round of drinks, and we continued talking about our favorite bands. Our musical tastes complemented each other perfectly, as if we were two halves of the same playlist. "Do you feel it?" he suddenly asked. "This connection. It's different." I nodded, mesmerized by the way the low light played over his mask. Our knees brushed casually, sending small electric currents through my body. The proximity was magnetic, yet we maintained a respectful distance. "Sometimes," he continued in a lower voice, "we run into people who seem to have known us our entire lives, even when we've just met. The mystery of the masks enhanced every sensation, every exchanged word. It was as if we were in our own little bubble, isolated from the outside world. The music, the drinks, the flowing conversation, everything conspired to create a unique atmosphere of controlled intimacy. I realized I was allowing myself to feel something I'd kept hidden for a long time. It was dangerous, intense, but, in that moment, it seemed inevitable. What started as a casual night was evolving into something much deeper. It was when M mentioned Portland specifically that I felt the first warning sign. The rules of Velvet Mask were clear about maintaining anonymity, but he seemed to know exact places that I frequented. He mentioned a Japanese restaurant that I loved, described a particular street where I used to take photos. My mind started racing. Did we know each other? Had we crossed paths at a corporate event? The possibility left me uneasy. I also perceived a hesitation in his voice when he spoke of his personal life. He subtly evaded some topics, shifting the conversation when it neared something more intimate. There was an invisible wall he maintained, even in the midst of our evident connection. A part of me wanted to rip that mask off and discover who that man really was, the one who fascinated me so much. The other part enjoyed the mystery, afraid that reality might shatter the charm of the moment. The internal conflict consumed me. Follow my instincts or maintain the fantasy? The answer would come sooner than I imagined, and in a way that would change everything. It was past midnight when M suggested we go to the Velvet Mask rooftop. The nighttime view of Portland was breathtaking, the city lights reflecting on the river like fallen stars. The chilly autumn air brought us even closer. "I think I need to tell you something," M said, his voice trembling. My heart raced. He turned toward me with those intense green eyes like never before. His hands found mine, and I felt they were icy. "I know who you are, Derek." My blood ran cold. The club's rules were clear about keeping anonymity. How did he know my name? "I work at the headquarters of your company in Seattle," he continued. "Actually, I was the one who approved your transfer to Portland." My mind spun. M was Michael Richardson, the CEO of the company, the man who signed my paychecks, who defined the future of hundreds of employees, the man I'd only seen in corporate photos and virtual meetings until then. "I should have told you earlier, but..." He hesitated. "When I saw you come in today, I couldn't resist the chance to get to know you truly, without corporate formalities." I took a step back, my head processing a million thoughts per second. All our conversations, all the connections we had made, now had a new meaning. That's why he knew so many details about Portland, about my life. "Why?" was all I could ask. Michael slowly removed his mask. His face was even more imposing in person than in the corporate photos. "Because for months I've been reading your reports, watching your presentations, your way of thinking, your dedication. Everything about you intrigued me. When I found out you were coming to Velvet Mask today..." "How did you know I was coming?" "Ryan," he confessed. "He works directly with me. I asked him to bring you here." The revelation hit me like a punch. The entire night had been orchestrated. The connection I felt, the coincidences, all were part of a plan. "Derek," he stepped toward me. "I know this sounds crazy, but tonight, this connection, it's real. More real than any corporate meeting, than any report." I took off my mask as well, feeling the cool night air on my face. The whole city seemed to be spinning around us. There we were, CEO and manager, two people who should never have gotten so close in that way. "This is complicated," I finally managed to say. "I know," he replied in a softer voice. "And it's going to get even more complicated when I tell you that I'm considering you for regional director." The announcement would be next week. The silence that followed was deafening. The promotion I had longed for was within reach, but now it was tainted by that night, by those confusing feelings, by that undeniable connection. Michael stepped closer, his green eyes fixed on mine. "But right now, I'm not thinking about positions or promotions. I'm thinking about what it would be like to kiss you under these stars." And there, on the Velvet Mask rooftop, with Portland as our witness, I faced the hardest decision of my life. Time stopped on that rooftop. The city below continued its nocturnal dance of lights and shadows. But in our small universe, only the space between the two of us existed, shrinking with every breath. "This is going to change everything," I whispered, more to myself than to him. Michael gently caressed my face, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "Some things are worth changing," he replied. "I don't know who moved first. Perhaps it was simultaneous, as if we were following an invisible choreography." His lips met mine with a delicacy that contrasted with the intensity of his eyes. The kiss began softly, hesitantly, as if we were testing the limits of this new reality. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer. The scent of his cologne mixed with whiskey enveloped me completely. I felt his fingers intertwine in my hair as the kiss deepened. Years of unacknowledged tension melting away into a moment of pure connection. When we pulled apart to catch our breath, we kept our foreheads together. The city spun around us, but we were anchored to each other. "We should go somewhere more private," Michael proposed, his voice husky with contained desire. I nodded, unable to form words. He took my hand and led me through the nearly empty club to the street where his driver discreetly waited in a black Audi. The ride to his apartment in South Waterfront was an exercise in self-control. Seated in the back seat, we maintained a respectful distance, yet the tension between us was almost palpable. His fingers softly caressed my hand, each touch sending shivers down my spine. His apartment occupied the entire top floor. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but I barely had time to appreciate it. As soon as the door closed, Michael pressed me against the wall, his lips finding my neck. "We can still stop," he murmured against my skin. "If you want." In response, I pulled him in for another kiss, this time more urgent. His hands explored my body over my clothes, each touch precise and provocative. We slowly began to undress, amidst kisses and caresses, leaving a trail of clothes along the way to his bedroom. The moonlight streamed through the windows, bathing his sculpted body in silver hues. Michael laid me on the king-size bed, his green eyes darkened by desire. Every touch, every kiss was a discovery. Our bodies fit perfectly together, as if they were made for each other. Time lost all meaning. We lost ourselves in each other, exploring, discovering, connecting on a level that went beyond the physical. It was more than desire. It was recognition, as if our souls had known each other forever, and our bodies were only now coming together. When we finally rested, intertwined in silk sheets, reality began to filter in slowly. The sun started to peek over Portland, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. "I don't regret it," Michael sighed, lazily drawing patterns on my back. "Me neither," I replied, well aware that the morning would bring complications we weren't yet ready to face. The morning sun flooded the apartment when I woke up, momentarily disoriented. Michael was already up, wearing dress pants and preparing coffee in the kitchen. Seeing him so homely, so different from the powerful CEO, made my heart race for a moment. "Good morning," he smiled, offering me a cup. "Did you sleep well?" I accepted the coffee, conscious that he was only wearing the shirt from the night before. The silence between us was charged with unspoken questions. "We need to talk," I finally said, sitting on the tall kitchen island stool. Michael nodded and his face took on a more serious expression. "I spent the night going over this. About us. About the company. The promotion," I began, but he gently interrupted me. "The promotion is yours on merit, Derek. Nothing that happened last night changes that. Actually, I'm completely stepping aside from the selection process. Janet from HR will take care of everything." I swallowed a sip of coffee, processing his words. "And us? How is this going to work?" Michael stepped closer, resting his hands on the counter. "There are a few options. We can keep this a secret, but honestly, I don't want to. Or I can reassign your direct supervision to another executive, keeping everything transparent. Wouldn't that affect my position? There will probably be rumors, speculations, but your work speaks for itself, and I'm willing to face the board if necessary." The determination in his voice took me by surprise. This wasn't just the CEO talking. It was the man who had shared not only his bed, but also his vulnerabilities with me. "One more thing," he continued softly. "I don't want this to be just one night. I want to really get to know you, Derek. This time, without masks." My heart raced. "People are going to talk. Let them talk," he smiled, moving closer. "Some things are worth the risk." At that moment, I made my decision. The reassignment of supervision sounds like the best option. But let's take it slow, okay? No big announcements for now. Michael smiled, with that same smile that had enchanted me at the bar. "All right. And about that Japanese dinner you mentioned last night. You mean the one you already knew I frequented?" I teased, provoking him and making him laugh. "Guilty, but now I can officially take you there. Tonight?" I nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. The coming weeks would be a challenge, adapting to the new role, dealing with changes in the work dynamic, building this budding relationship away from corporate spotlights. Michael leaned in and kissed me gently. "It's going to be all right," he murmured against my lips. And for the first time since I entered Velvet Mask, I felt that maybe he was right. Some connections are too rare to ignore, and certain risks are worth taking. As we finished our coffee, watching Portland wake up below, I realized that sometimes the best gifts in life come disguised as complications, and that some masks, when removed, reveal exactly what we needed to find. The sun was already high when I finally left Michael's apartment. He insisted that his driver take me home, but I preferred to walk. I needed that time to sort out my thoughts, to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Portland looked different that morning. The usual streets had a new shine, as if the whole city shared my secret. I passed by Velvet Mask, now silent and drowsy, so different from the mysterious atmosphere of the previous night. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Michael. Already missing you. Dinner at 8? I promise not to orchestrate anything this time. I smiled and typed my reply. This time, I choose the place. When I got home, I found the Velvet mask on my table. I picked it up, remembering how it all began. Who would have thought that such a simple object could trigger such a profound change in my life? Shortly after, Ryan called. So, you and Michael? How did you know I would answer? Because I know you. He laughed. And because Michael just called me to handle the reassignment. I sighed. It was all your idea, wasn't it? Let's say I just created the opportunity. The rest was up to you guys. After hanging up, I sat on my balcony watching the city. In a few hours, I'd see Michael again. But this time it would be different. No masks, no pretense. Just the two of us discovering this new territory together. My corporate email pinged with the official notification. A meeting with HR on Monday to discuss the promotion. Reality was starting to align with the fantasy of the previous night. I took out my phone again and wrote to Michael. About tonight. Are you sure you want to continue? We can still back out. His response came almost immediately. Some people spend their entire lives searching for what we found last night. I'm not willing to let it go. And you? The truth was, I wasn't either. Despite the challenges that lay ahead, despite the complications that would undoubtedly arise, the idea of not exploring that connection seemed unthinkable. Then, at 8, I replied. And Michael, thanks for taking off your mask last night. Thanks to you for accepting what you found behind it. I stored the Velvet mask in a drawer. Maybe one day it would become just a memory of how it all started. Or perhaps we'd go back there now and then to relive the magic of that first night. But for now, it was time to live our story without disguises. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of preparations and anticipation. At 7:45, I was standing in front of the mirror adjusting my tie. This time, there was no mask to hide my smile. No anonymity rules to follow. My phone vibrated one last time. Michael had arrived. I took a deep breath and left, ready to begin this new chapter. Because sometimes the best stories start when we take off our masks and allow someone to truly see us. And this story, well, it was just beginning. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. 6 months have passed since that night at Velvet Mask. Life has a curious way of surprising us when we least expect it, of turning an impulse into a permanent change. Michael and I have found our rhythm. At work, we maintain impeccable professionalism. I report to Janet, and he focuses on his responsibilities as CEO. In the company hallways, we are just two executives exchanging cordial greetings. But outside of that, we are ourselves, discovering new facets of each other day by day. Rumors arrived, as expected. Some questioned my promotion, others talked of favoritism. But we let our work speak for itself. Under my leadership, the region had its best quarter in 5 years. The doubts were silenced, replaced by respect. We still go to Velvet Mask from time to time, not to hide, but to celebrate where it all began. The masks now rest on a shelf in our apartment. Yes, ours, since last month. As a reminder that sometimes you have to hide to truly find yourself. Ryan still boasts about his role as the corporate Cupid, and maybe he deserves it. After all, he was the one who saw beyond hierarchies and recognized a potential connection. For those of you still hesitant to follow your instincts, who hide behind metaphorical masks for fear of judgment or consequences, here's some advice. Sometimes, the greatest risk is not taking one. Love doesn't respect org charts, titles, or social norms. If you feel that special connection, that spark of possibility, don't let fear or doubts crush it. Take off your mask. Allow yourself to be seen. Allow yourself to feel. Because in the end, it's not the emails sent or the meetings we remember. It's the moments of courage, when we choose authenticity over safety, love over fear. Michael and I discovered it one autumn night in Portland. And you? What masks are you ready to take off? Life is too short to live hidden. Sometimes all we need is one night of masks to find the courage to show who we really are. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this.